the former minority spokesperson on energy, and on energy, that's in the person of Abdullahi Jinapo, and also the member of parliament for Yapi Kusoku. But then his immediate, well, not his immediate, the immediate past energy minister says that the current administration should keep the power on. Please, we consumers only want our power to be stable. Where do we stand exactly at this point?
Well, nowadays, I side with the former position that we keep the lights on. Yes, today we have some semblance of stability of our supply, but for us energy watchers, we know that it's more artificial than because we know we have a very weak system. We have all the installed capacity, right? However, fuel supply has been the major challenge, and that we can only have that comfort of fuel supply when we have our liquidity right in the space. The elephant in the room being the ECG, it's unable to collect the expected revenue, and so we see that here, we see that there, and that makes it quite difficult to procure fuel a standby for some of the thermal power plants. That very challenge doesn't really give us comfort, and so we know that the light that we see today, there is no assurance that tomorrow will have same, even though we have adequate install capacity. We are more reliant on natural gas for power generation, natural gas from Nigeria and natural gas from our own domestic source. This is moved by WAPCO, and sometimes WAPCO is compelled to shut down for non-payment, and sometimes for maintenance purposes. We get the indication that WAPCO wants to undertake another exercise, that's a picking exercise, and also some maintenance on their subsea valve, probably in the next 12 days. If it happens so, now what we're going to say is that gas flow from Nigeria to Ghana may only be directed to Takoradi as we get indication, because they have to close some of their lateral valves that come to Benin, Togo, and Tema. It's in corridor. And so it means that plants like AXA, Power, and Asogli, and Tema power plants may not have natural gas to fire their system. If that happens to, because it is cheaper for them, that's why they want to use that. However, we are supposed to have a backup fuel system. And you know that almost all the power plants run on multiple fuels. And so by this time, we must have in stock adequate amounts of diesel, heavy fuel oil, or light crude oil, so that they can fall on that when there's a disruption in natural gas flow. That is not the case. What Power has in stock can last more than 7 days. What AXA have in stock is just for about a week or so. Asogli has no liquid fuel in stock, as we checked this morning. Pontema power plant doesn't have fuel stock. And so if they are out of liquid fuel due to any disruption in natural gas flow, it means that we are only going to be reliant on the natural gas in the Western Corridor. In the Western Corridor, they can produce just around 2,800 megawatts, including Amoasi thermal power plants, about 2,800. Our peak demand as a country is hovering around 3,800 megawatts, forecasted to go up to about 4,200 megawatts by end of this year. And so even if we use today's expected peak demand of 3,800, relative to what the others can produce, roughly 2,800, we have a deficit of 1,000 megawatts that we must shed, because not everybody can have the power. So some parts may have to doom and some parts will have to solve. And so there is that eminent challenge in the next few weeks, particularly if WAPCO undertake the exercise by on the 20th. And touch wood, should anything also happen between now and going forward relative to our natural gas pipeline, then of course we are exposed. And so we must have a backup. But then, what I was expecting to hear from the Honorable MP is that, yes, this is the situation we find ourselves, but this is what we are doing as a country. And for us, there is no room for excuses here. The last time the previous government attempted to be going by taking the way of excuses and shouting here and there, excess power, a few years later, we were hit by DUSO, and we have been in DUSO all this while. And so they must get to work, that's the new administration, and ensure that our lights are on. Yes, tell us your challenge, but also tell us what you are doing to resolve it.
And so you would expect that the current administration would get to work in earnest in order to prevent a potential power crisis, which you essentially say is self-inflicted, isn't it?
It is, because we can't say it is the doing of this government. We can't say so.
Yes, the previous administration.
The previous administration could have made, arrangement for procurement of additional liquid fuel to be on standby. However, we rather expect the new government to act swiftly and engage a supplier. It may take more than 2 weeks to get here, but we must start, because we don't have even an hour to spare for DUSO. Yes, if it happens the next minute or tomorrow, I can understand, but not every Ghanaian can understand. And remember John Mahama and the tag of DUSO. We know very well that we are not out of the woods, and we may have to contend with DUSO for the next 1 year. Because to this point that we are doing that discussion, we are talking only about generation. But there are problems in the transmission grid. There are problems in the distribution grid. A lot of investment will have to be done before we can say that we have a robust energy system. But what we have today, it is not a robust system. It's fragile. And at any point in time, if it's not about generation, it could be about transmission, or it could be about distribution.
All right. So when you hear, for instance, my final one, when you hear, for instance, the former energy minister talk about how, the current administration should keep the lights on like they did, and explaining all these that you're saying in relation to the crisis, the looming crisis, if nothing is done about it, what do you deduce from that?
Well, they are not in a position to tell this government to keep the lights on, because they have not kept the lights on. They did not inherit themselves. They rather inherited an improved power generation system, to the point where they could even describe reserve margin as excess capacity. They had opportunity to invest heavily in the distribution grid that has become our bane today, the ECG, but they mishandled the process of the ECG concession agreement, and we lost the opportunity to have money and improve on the system. Today, in GRICO, the transmitter, and ECG, in terms of technical loss, it's in excess of 31%. When they came to power, technical losses and commercial losses in the ECG was below 24%. Today, in excess of 30%. They inherited a cash waterfall mechanism. Today, we have a non-working cash waterfall mechanism as we get the information from the PRC. They inherited also an opportunity to use natural gas from our own domestic sources, something the previous NDC didn't have. I don't think they have the right to the power sector, because not efficiently handled it. And this is some of the things we are seeing today.
Mr. Amoasi, can you hear me?
I'm here,
Yes,
Nadide.
you said that they are not in the position to talk about the power station because I lost you momentarily. If you could kindly repeat that.
Because they just manage the power sector well. You had ESLA, a stream of income to clear legacy debt of 2.7 billion, almost 650 million annually, and for 8 years, that we could have had about $1 billion of ESLA. You still have 2.5 billion debt in the sector. Where did the ESLA go? And so I came inheriting 2.7 billion dollar of legacy debt, and I'm living with 2.5. No, where is the ESLA? Where did it go? You misapplied the ESLA. By now, we should not be seeing that in the sector. ECG appears to tell us nowadays that sometimes, even in some months, they are able to collect 50% of their expected revenue. Isn't it a period that told us that? ECG was making profit in 2015, 2016. Since 2017 to today, ECG VRA is making losses. And so, please, they should leave it for the current government. They have no locus to hound the new government on the power sector. Not to say that the new government must not get to work. They must get to work. That's why we voted for them. And we don't want excuses here. If you have talent, tell us.
Okay.
You're going to resolve it. That's what we want to hear, not excuses.
Well, Amoasi, thank you very much for your time. We're grateful that you were able to speak to us. Have a lovely day, sir.
Super day, Nadide.
You heard us speak to Amoasi the seventh. He is Executive Director of the Institute of Energy Security. Speaking, we spoke to him in relation to the power situation in the country. It's still the Morning Star here on Star 103.5 FM. I'll open the telephone lines immediately to hear some of your thoughts in relation to what your assessment of inaugural speech of the President is. Let me hear you. 0552 880 216. That is the number to reach us on.